Hello and welcome back. In the last section, we looked at building our layout structure, and we also deployed that on the cloud on Netlify. And we also set up the CI/CD deployment process in place. The good part of deploying this on the cloud provider is that we have SSL enabled here automatically. So all our communications between the user and the website happen through a secure communication channel, which is encrypted, okay, and which is one of the primary requirements for building any non-trivial application on the cloud. So that's good to know. And let's now turn our attention to building the landing page. And so if you look at our reference app, this is how the landing page looks like. We have a background image here for the landing page, and everything else is the same. So right now we will be using the layout structure to build this, because the footer here and the navbar are essentially already built in or baked into our layout. The only thing that's going to change is the main component. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Let's head over to our editor. And in this case, let's go ahead and maximize this, because before we start actually seeing the changes, it'll be a while. So because we also have to essentially wire this component up on the navigation bar and also to the React router links as well, right? So there is a little bit of a wiring up there, which needs to happen. So we will keep that aside for now and just focus on the component building for now. Let's head over to the components folder. And in here, I will go ahead and create a new folder called landing page. And inside the landing page, I will go ahead and create a new file, landing page.js. Super. And in here, I'll use the RAFCE utility to actually generate a arrow function. All right. So, and I'll follow the standard process to render the landing page. I'll say const render landing page. Alright, and this is going to be an arrow function, and that's going to return. We will use the concise syntax again, because again this is our presentational component. So let's go ahead and say we want to return some div that says it's landing page. Let's see, and then I'll go ahead and call this in here. Okay, I'll just get rid of this div in favor of empty React fragment. Let's say render. That's going to be in flower braces. Render landing page. Okay, super. So this is good. Another thing is, while this is going to work, but we also said we have to use our layout component, right? So what we have to do here, instead of this, we have to go ahead and call our layout function, our layout component, okay? And that's gonna look like layout. And let me see if I can go ahead and auto import this. And that it doesn't essentially prompt you for auto import. No. Okay, let me go ahead and then close this, close it with a closing tag. And inside here, I want to say I'll just say landing page here, okay? And this is how my initial landing page will look like, but I will go ahead and use the layout structure. And let me also go ahead and import the layout. It's gonna be one level about, layout, and layout. Yes, that's the one, okay? So what's happening is we have actually gone ahead and wired our landing page with the layout framework, and now we have to essentially make sure this is actually visible or available for navigation. What I mean by that is, if I go over to our Indie Cafe page here, if I click on this logo, it should take us to the root route and also give us the landing page. Okay, right now it is not doing that, correct? In order to do that, we also need to essentially make use of a routing package from React, and that's called React Router DOM. So what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and stop the app for now, because sometimes installation of React Router DOM can essentially enter into conflicts with the running app. So I want to make sure I have my app temporarily shut down, and I'm going to go ahead and say npm install react-router-dom. Okay, so I suppose this is going to take a little while. I mean, again, it depends on your internet connections. So I'll take a pause here. Finished here, so which is nice. And so what I'm going to do is I have to restart my app, and parallelly I will also essentially start building my routes. Okay, so I'll say npm start again. Okay, hopefully it's going to start, and in between I'm going to have another component here, which is essentially a non-presentational component. It'll be more of a routing component, and let's say I'm going to close this, the old one. Inside of components, I'll go ahead and create a new folder, and that's going to be called routes. Oops, it should be a folder, not a file. I think it is a folder. Okay, it is a folder, and it has a different look to it. And in here, I will go ahead and say routes.js, and this will be the same kind of our function. Say rafce, super. And in here, I'll need to do a couple of things, all right? And this is going to be predominantly a routing function and nothing to do with presentation, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say import a couple of classes from React Router DOM, and that's going to be browser router from React Router DOM. React Router DOM, yeah, that's the one. Hopefully that should not trigger any compilation error. Yeah, and I'll also make sure I import it as router for the sake of brevity, because browser router is a fairly verbose. I'll just use router as an alias. Okay, so that's one thing. I also need switch class from here for, you know, stricter pattern matching on the routes. Okay, and what else we need? We need route. So I think we can do with these three things right now, and because then if you add anything extra, again at the time of deployment, we'll end up with errors, right? So let's go ahead and work with these things. And inside the return, what I'm going to do is, so let's follow the same pattern. I'll just say const, not say render routes, deploy routes, super, and this is going to be a arrow function, okay, and that's going to return router component, okay, which we just imported here. So it's going to return a router, all right, and it is going to wrap a switch component, okay, and you'll also have a route for our landing page. Okay, so we will define a route, and it's going to be path is equal to the route path, all right, and I'll assign slash to it. Okay, and this is going to be exact, and we have to say what component we want to load when, you know, a user goes to this route. Okay, let's do that, and the component name obviously will be the landing page. Okay, so let's close this. I'm gonna go ahead and say landing page here, landing page. It'll allow me to import that as well. Super, excellent. So right now my routes are defined, okay, and in here I will go ahead and say return deploy routes, okay, inside of the React fragments. Okay, so I'll call inside of flower braces deploy routes. Okay, super. So we have a route set up now, and then the thing is, how do we call this? Let's head over to our app.js. Okay, and instead of calling the layout here, I will go ahead and call the routes now. All right, it'll encapsulate our routes, and I'll also go ahead and make sure this is minimized because we'll get to see what's happening in the browser immediately after this. I'll also go ahead and collapse the sidebar. Let's open our React app. Okay, this is our React app. So far so good. Let me make sure they're next to each other, and here what I'm going to do is just say instead of layout, let me say render app. Let's call this render app, in line with our intention to be standardized. Render app, that's going to be our function, and that's going to return. Okay, let's say the routes. Okay, yep, that's the one. All right, and instead of layout component here, go ahead and say inside of flower braces render app, like so. Super. And let me get rid of this layout, because otherwise we'll end up with a lot of warnings at the time of deployment. We have to be mindful of that as well. Okay, super. Let me go ahead and save this. It's saving. Hopefully it's going to be all right. It's compiling. Yep, it's compiled fine. Let me head over to the IndyCafe here, because if you look at our navbar, this is actually pointing to our route. So let's go here and click that. Yep, we do see that here, but I thought we would see the landing page where, it actually says landing page. It's not happening, right? There's a reason for that. Okay, and the reason is that if we go inside the landing page, we are getting the props, but we're not using the props. Okay, so that's, and unless we are using those props, it is not going to be visible here. We will have to essentially wire that up. I intentionally wanted to make sure that this was not wired up from the bottom up, because I felt it was much easier to understand if we looked at it from top down. So that's why I chose the top-down approach, to make sure the wiring happens properly between the props and they are flowing between one component to the other with a certain specific reasoning behind this being done. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have the landing page here, even though we are not necessarily displaying what's there in the landing page, which is essentially this literal landing page, but we are able to build our landing page using the layout framework, which means all the navbars and the other stuff we're able to leverage and over again. Let's take a quick pause here. We'll come back and then look at how we can propagate the props from the landing page and over to the layout.js and subsequently to the main content, which essentially hosts all the content that is and the children of the landing page. Okay, take a pause, come back soon.